My part is essential to God's plan for salvation. My part is essential to God's plan for salvation. My part is essential to God's plan for salvation. My part is essential to God's plan for salvation. Well, I'm Miracle Willie, forgiveness teacher from the Ozarks, and today our lesson in A Course in Miracles, published by Foundation for Inner Peace, is lesson 100, here on Tuesday, April the 9th of 2024. My part is essential to God's plan for salvation. Can you say that and mean it? Well, let's look at this and see what he has to say about it. Lesson 100, my part is essential to God's plan for salvation. Just as God's Son completes his Father, so your part in it completes your Father's plan. Salvation must reverse the mad belief in separate thoughts and separate bodies, which lead separate lives and go their separate ways. One function shared by separate minds unites them in one purpose, for each one of them is equally essential to them all. God's will for you is perfect happiness. God's will for you is perfect happiness. Hold on to that idea. God's will for you is perfect happiness. Why should you choose to go against his will? The part that he has saved for you to take in working out his plan is given you that you might be restored to what he wills. This part is as essential to his plan as to your happiness. Your joy must be complete to let his plan be understood by those to whom he sends you. They will see their function in your shining face and hear God calling to them in your happy laugh. You are indeed essential to God's plan for salvation. You are indeed essential to God's plan. Without joy, his joy is incomplete. Without your smile, the world cannot be saved. While you are sad, the light that God himself appointed as the means to save the world is dim and lusterless, and no one laughs, because all laughter can but echo yours. You are indeed essential to God's plan. Just as your light increases every light that shines in heaven, so your joy on earth calls to all minds to let their sorrows go and take their place beside you in God's plan. God's messengers are joyous, and their joy heals sorrow and despair. They are the proof that God wills perfect happiness for all who will accept their Father's gift as theirs. We will not let ourselves be sad today. We will not let ourselves be sad today. For if we do, we fail to take the part that is essential to God's plan, as well as to our vision. Sadness is the sign that you would play another part instead of what has been assigned to you by God. Thus do you fail to show the world how great the happiness he wills for you, and so you do not recognize that it is yours. So he's saying you can basically use if you have sadness, realize you're not doing your part, because your part is to be happy, to be filled with joy. So if you find yourself in that position, practice forgiveness. Let go of what you don't need so that you can be who you are. Today we will attempt to understand joy as our function here. If you are sad, your part is unfulfilled, and all the world is thus deprived of joy along with you. God asks you to be happy, so the world can see how much he loves his Son, and wills no sorrow rises to abate his joy. No fear besets him to disturb his peace. You are God's messenger today. You bring His happiness to all you look upon, His peace to everyone who looks on you and sees His message in your happy face. Again on that sentence. You are God's messenger today. You bring His happiness to all you look upon, His peace to everyone who looks on you and sees His message in your happy face. Sees God's message in your happy face. Can you spread the word just by smiling? That's what He says you're doing. We will prepare ourselves for this today in our 5-minute practice periods by feeling happiness arise in us according to our Father's will and ours. Begin the exercises with the thought today's idea contains. Then realize your part is to be happy. My part is essential to God's plan for salvation. Well, realize your part is to be happy. You can't ask for anything easier than that, can you? To be happy, that's your part in God's plan for salvation. Only this is asked of you or anyone who wants to take his place among God's messengers. All you have to do is be happy, and you're a messenger of God. Think what this means. You have indeed been wrong in your belief that sacrifice is asked. You but receive according to God's plan and never lose or sacrifice or die. Now let us try to find that joy that proves to us and all the world God's will for us. It is your function that you find it here and that you find it now. For this you came. Let this one be the day that you succeed. Look deep within you, undismayed by all the little thoughts and foolish goals you pass as you ascend to meet the Christ in you. He will be there, and you can reach Him now. What could you rather look upon in place of Him who waits that you may look on Him? What little thought has power to hold you back? What foolish goal can keep you from success when He who calls to you is God Himself? He's calling to you. Be happy. Come to me. Be my messenger. He will be there. You are essential to His plan. You are His messenger today, and you must find what He would have you give. Do not forget the idea for today between your hourly practice periods. It is yourself who calls to you today, and it is Him you answer. Every time you tell yourself you are essential to God's plan for the salvation of the world. Just by being happy. Okay, well, let's go look at our text reading, and we'll come back to that. My part is essential to God's plan for salvation. And we're ready for chapter 12, the Holy Spirit's curriculum, Roman numeral 3, the investment in reality. And let's see what's going on around the world today. Of course, Ramadan continues. Appomattox Day, the day that the Civil War was officially ended, there in 1865. Day of the Finnish language. So our word for peace, we'll use it from Finland, and it's Ruahaa. And I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but I listened to it, and it sounded like, there might have been a kind of an R sound at the beginning, but it was very minimal. Ho sound, Ruahaa is how I am to say it as not a Finn. International ASMR Day, which is the Autonomous Sensory Myriad Response. You know, when someone whispers in your ear and you get a tickle down your spinal cord. Well, that is what the ASMR. That's the ASM response. Anyway, I thought that was kind of cool. Got a name for it. Jenkins Ear Day, and that was the day that the English captain Robert Jenkins lost his ear in a war with the Spaniards. And I didn't get the date on that. Sorry about that. Name Yourself Day. You know, I've been several things through my life. I started out as a Billy. My parents changed it to Bill. After my wife and my mother of my 6 children died, I started going by Will. And then I didn't want to get too serious on the reason I changed it to Will, because I was willing to know God, to know that all things work together for good. And so I wanted to lighten it up a little bit, so I threw my middle initial in there, made a Will E. My middle initial's Edward. My last name's Perkins. William Edward Perkins is the name that is on what they called my birth certificate. I don't remember though. I don't remember being born so much. That's supposed to be a joke. I do remember some of it though. National Former Prisoner of War Recognition Day. Be Kind to Lawyers Day. Gotta be kind to everyone. National Library and National Library Workers Day. National Unicorn Day. And Winston Churchill Day, the English Prime Minister and statesman. He was given U.S. citizenship on this day in 1963, 2 years before he died. And now in edible landscaping, we've got the Izumi Asian Persimmon, and it's a Diospirus khaki. And the Izumi, it says of it that Izumi is a very early ripening fuyu type, usually seedless, can be eaten hard like an apple, almost a month earlier than others. Fruits keep well. Dwarf tree. Fruit color burnt orange. Fruit colors up earlier than others. Tastes very good even if the fruit softens. Space 10-foot circles. Self-fertile, zone 6 through 8. And then in our Permaculture for Beginners by Carrie Mitchell, Australian Chapter 6, water. And her next infrastructure she talks about is catchment systems. My words that to sum up her paragraph was hold water where it falls to be used when needed for irrigating. Use homes, garages, shops, driveways, can all catch water using gutters, ditches, ponds, and barrels, etc. So that and she points out that during water bans, you can still water your plants if you're using rainwater catchment in most places. There are some exceptions to that. I hear Colorado on the western slopes is the water rights have been sold. I don't know how you could sell somebody else's rights to water. Seems like an individual thing instead of a government thing. Anyway, my part is essential to God's plan for salvation. Okay, let's go take a look. The Investment in Reality, Chapter 12, the Holy Spirit's Curriculum, number 3. The Investment in Reality. I once asked you to sell all you have and give to the poor and follow me. And Jesus asked that to that rich young ruler, recorded in Matthew chapter 19, verse 21. This is what I meant. You know, he said, Jesus told him, if you want to be perfect, go sell what you possess and give to the poor, and then come follow me. And you will have treasure in heaven. Then come follow me, he says. So this is what I meant. If you have no investment in anything in this world, you can teach the poor where their treasure is. The poor are merely those who have invested wrongly, and they are poor indeed. Because they are in need, it is given you to help them, since you are among them. Consider how perfectly your lesson would be learned if you were unwilling to share their poverty. For poverty is lack, and there is but one lack, since there is but one need. 2. Suppose a brother insists on, and that one need is forgiveness. That one need is the eternal riches, the eternal joy of knowing how to let go of illusions. Suppose, to get the miracle, that's our one need, is the miracle. Suppose a brother insists on having you do something you think you do not want to do. His very insistence should tell you that he believes salvation lies in it. If you insist on refusing and experience a quick response of opposition, you're believing that your salvation lies in not doing it. You're then making the same mistake he is, and are making his errors real to both of you. Insistence means investment, and what you invest in is always related to your notion of salvation. The question is always twofold. First, what is to be saved? And second, how can it be saved? 3. Whenever you become angry with a brother for whatever reason, you're believing that the ego is to be saved, and to be saved by attack. If he attacks, you are agreeing with this belief, and if you attack, you are reinforcing it. Remember that those who attack are poor. Their poverty asks for gifts, not for further impoverishment. You who could help them are surely acting destructively if you accept their poverty as yours. If you had not invested as they had, it would never occur to you to overlook their need. 4. Recognize what does not matter. And if your brothers ask you for something, in quotes, outrageous, do it, because it does not matter. Refuse, and your opposition establishes that it does matter to you. It is only you, therefore, who have made the request outrageous, and every request of a brother is for you. Why would you insist on denying him? For to do so is to deny yourself and impoverish both. He is asking for salvation as you are. Poverty is of the ego and never of God. No outrageous request can be made of one who recognizes what is valuable and wants to accept nothing else. 5. Salvation is for the mind, and it is attained through peace. This is the only thing that can be saved and the only way to save it. Any response other than love arises from a confusion about the what and the how of salvation. And this is the only answer. Never lose sight of this, and never allow yourself to believe even for an instant that there is another answer. For you will surely place yourself among the poor, who do not understand that they dwell in abundance, and that salvation is come. 6. To identify with the ego is to attack yourself and make yourself poor. That is why everyone who identifies with the ego feels deprived. What he experiences then is depression or anger, because what he did was to exchange self-love for self-hate, making him afraid of himself. He does not realize this. Even if he is fully aware of anxiety, he does not perceive its source as his own ego identification. And he always tries to handle it by making some sort of, in quotes, arrangement with the world. He always perceives the world as outside himself, for this is crucial to his adjustment. He does not realize that he makes this world, for there is no world outside of him. 7. If only the loving thoughts of God's Son are the world's reality, the real world must be in your mind, or in his mind. If only the loving thoughts of God's Son are the world's reality, the real world must be in his mind. His insane thoughts too must be in his mind, but an eternal conflict of this magnitude he cannot tolerate. A split mind is endangered, and the recognition that it encompasses completely opposed thoughts within itself is intolerable. Therefore, the mind projects the split, not the reality. Everything you perceive as the outside world is merely your attempt to maintain your ego identification. For everyone believes that identification is salvation, yet consider what has happened. For thoughts do have consequences to the thinker. You have become at odds with the world as you perceive it, because you think it is antagonistic to you. This is a necessary consequence of what you have done. You have projected outward what is antagonistic to what is inward, and therefore you would have to perceive it this way. That is why you must realize that your hatred is in your mind and not outside it before you can get rid of it, and why you must get rid of it before you can perceive the world as it really is. I said before that God so loved the world that he gave it to his only begotten Son. Of course, that was taken from John 3:16, and he talked about it in chapter 2 of the text, section 7, verse 5. God does love the real world, and those who perceive its reality cannot see the world of death. For death is not of the real world, in which everything reflects the eternal. God gave you the real world in exchange for the one you made out of your split mind, and which is the symbol of death. For if you could really separate yourself from the mind of God, you would die. The world you perceive is a world of separation. Perhaps you're willing to accept even death to deny your Father, yet he would not have it so. So it is not so. You still cannot will against him, and that is why you have no control over the world you made. It is not a world of will because it is governed by the desire to be unlike God, and this desire is not will. The world you made is therefore totally chaotic, governed by arbitrary and senseless laws, and without meaning of any kind. For it is made out of what you do not want, projected from your mind because you are afraid of it. Yet this world is only in the mind of its maker, along with his real salvation. Do not believe it is outside of yourself, for only by recognizing where it is will you gain control over it. For you do have control over your mind, since it is the mechanism of decision. And the last paragraph, 10. If you will recognize that all attack you perceive is in your own mind and nowhere else, you will at last have placed its source, and where it begins, it must end. For in this same place also lies salvation. The altar of God where Christ abideth is there. You have defiled the altar, but not the world. Yet Christ has placed the atonement on the altar for you. Bring your perceptions of the world to this altar, for it is the altar to truth. There you will see your vision changed, and there you will learn to see truly. For this place where God and his Son dwell in peace, and where you are welcome, you will look out in peace and behold the world truly. Yet to find the place, you must relinquish your investment in the world as you project it, allowing the Holy Spirit to extend the real world to you from the altar of God. Okay, and I kind of made a song. It's taken from the course, and I think I'll spend the rest of our singing this little song. I took some of the statements out of what we're to do today. And you're supposed to take your 5 minutes at the top of every hour and tell yourself, today my part is essential to God's plan for salvation. And if you consider some of the things he told us to do, like being happy and that others will find God, find that connection with their source in our happy laugh, in our shining face. So this is what our practice should be geared at, watching our happiness, to being sure that we really are fulfilling God's plan for salvation. So I'll just say a few of the sentences. I've changed them slightly to put it in the first person. essential to God's plan for salvation. My part is essential to God's plan for salvation. God's will for me is perfect happiness. My joy must be complete to let His plan be understood. Be understood by those to whom He sends to you. They will see their function in your shining face and hear God calling to them in your happy laugh. I am indeed essential to God's plan for salvation. My part is essential to God's plan for salvation. My part is essential to God's plan for salvation. God wills for me His perfect happiness. My joy must be complete to let His plan be understood. Be understood by those to whom He sends to me. They will see their function in my shining face and hear God calling to them in my happy laugh. I am indeed essential to God's plan for salvation. My part is essential to God's plan for salvation. God's will for us is perfect happiness. Our part is essential to God's plan for salvation. My part is essential to God's plan for salvation. My part is essential to God's plan for salvation. Our part is essential to God's plan for salvation. His joy is not complete unless ours is. I don't understand that, but that's what He's saying, telling us. My part is essential to God's plan for salvation. And our word for peace in Finnish is Ruahaa. My part is essential to God's plan for salvation. Ruahaa.